Remember, Module 11 and 12 is going through similar figures, and this is where we're going to start talking about similar polygons. We're just going to be matching up different sides together, but the main part is that if you have any corresponding angles of your similar figures are going to be congruent. Your corresponding sides, because it is smaller or larger, will not be congruent, but they will be proportional, so we can set up a ratio to compare the two of them. This little symbol right here means that it is similar, so this first triangle is similar to the second triangle, and that means we know that all the angles are going to be congruent. So if we list them out, that would be that angle A is going to be congruent to angle X. And remember, I'm looking at just the ratio right here, or the similarity statement we're using. Next would be the angle B is going to be congruent to angle Y, and angle C is congruent to angle Z. The sides are proportional, so that means we're going to be setting up a ratio. So AB would be proportional to XY. So the ratio between those first two sides would be proportional to or equal to BC over YZ, and then AC over XZ. So if you pair up any of the sides together from one triangle to the other, that they would be equal to each other. All right, so in this first picture, if we know that these two figures, these two quadrilaterals, or really trapezoids, are similar to each other, we want to solve for the x and y. So what you have to notice is we want to pair up the different sides together. So AB is going to line up with that side of PS. AD is going to line up with this side right here. And then I have my angle measurement of C is going to be lining up with my angle measurement right there. So let's go ahead and do the angles first, because we know that angles are equal to each other. This means that 4x plus 27 is going to equal 95. So when we subtract the 27 to the other side, we get 4x equals 68. That means when we divide, we get x equals 17. So remember, angles are equal to each other. If it is the sides, we need to set up a proportion to solve for that. So if I have AB compared to PS, and then we have to set it up the same way for the blue, so AD then would be over my PQ, I can fill in the corresponding pieces. So AB would be 4y, PS is 10, and then my AD is 3y minus 5. The PQ then is 5, and now we're just going to cross multiply like we saw in the previous video. So remember, we got to keep parentheses around the 3y minus 5. And then our 4y times 5 is on the other side. When we distribute, we get a 30y minus 50 equals 20y. If I subtract my 30 over, I get negative 50 equals negative 10y. But once I divide, I end up with a positive 5 for my y value. In number 2, we're going to do something similar. It does tell us the two triangles are similar to each other, but what I recommend is you draw out the two separate triangles. So I filled in most of it. The part I did not fill in is AD. So right here, we have this little piece is Y, and A to E is 5.6, but we need to combine those together. So instead of writing it separately, we're going to write 5.6 plus Y, because we do not know what Y is, but we can still fill in that missing piece right there. Now, if we line up all the corresponding sides together, we have AE matches up with AD. We have then that AB matches up with DC, and then our angle will be congruent to this angle. So let's start with angles first. So we know that angle B is equal to angle C. So you should have set them equal. So 3x plus 14 equals 50. Then when we subtract our 14 to the other side, we get 36. When we divide that by 3, we end up with a 12 for our x. So moving on to our purple and pink over there, we need to set up the corresponding sides. So the ratio of the corresponding sides should be AE over AD, and then equals EB over DC. Notice it's always going from one triangle to the next. So you're not comparing two sides in the same triangle together for your ratio. It always has to be one triangle to the next. Next, we can fill in our pieces. So AE is 5.6, AD is 5.6 plus Y, and then our two pink numbers would be 4 and a 5. So again, we're going to cross multiply, and I want you now to solve for your Y. All right, so your final answer for Y should be 1.4. And here's all the work that goes with it. So we first just set up your equation like this. If you distribute, you get 22.4 plus 4y equals 28. If we move this to the other side by subtracting, we get 5.6. Then we have to divide everything by 4, and we get 1.4 for your final answer on that one. All right, so for number 3, this is more just can you set up the ratios correctly together? And I want you to find the statement that is false. So 3 or 4 of them will be true and 1 will be false. So one way to do this is if we know that CDEF is similar to KLMN, one way to do this is if you number the different letters, you might be able to pair them up a little bit easier. And you want to see the same pairing. So CD is 1, 2. KL is also 1, 2, so that ratio is set up the same. Then, or they pair up the corresponding sides together. Next, 3, 4 would be EF, and MN is also 3, 4. So notice both of the ratios are pairing up the corresponding sides together. So if it doesn't, then that's the one that is false. So you want to go through the next one the same way. So CF is a 1 and a 4, so first and last. KN is also 1 and 4, so far so good. EF is 3, 4, MN is 3, 4. That one's also good. So I want you to do the next one now yourself. All right, so DE you should have put was 2, 3, LM is 2, 3, and then CF was 1, 4, KN is 1, 4, and both of those work. So hopefully you said that that did work and it was not false. All right, so LM, we're getting down to the end ones, and it's okay if they mix up the order. It's still 2, 3. DE is still 2, 3 for the other ratio. And then KL still goes from the same triangle, then to the triangle on the left, so 1, 2. So both of those do have the same ratio. So hopefully this last one is the one that is false. LM is 2, 3. DE is 2, 3. KN is 1, 4. And then CD is 1, 2. So if you notice, these are not the same. So this is the one that is false. So at this point, the only way that we can determine if two figures are similar is if they have congruent angles, and if their sides, all their different sides paired up together, have the same ratio. So we need to look at the different angles and look at our different sides, and we also need to kind of determine which sides pair up together. So the 3 is the shorter side, so that would mean in this other parallelogram, we've got those two sides of the shorter side, so that's what we're going to set up together. So 3 over 1.9 is what we want to divide. If I divide that, I get 1.578. So that just tells me what the ratio number is going to be, and then I can compare it to the other one. So now the longer sides, paired up with the longer sides, we would have 6.6 divided by 6.08. And if I divide that one, I get 1.0855. So they're not the same ratio, which means that they are not similar to each other. And our full reason is because the corresponding sides are not proportional. Now, if you did pair up our angles right there between those two, the angles are congruent, so that part works, but it's because of the ratio that means it is not a similar figure. So going on to the next one, if we pair up, let's see, this would be the shorter side compared to the 24, so that would be my 4s in here. So if we set up that ratio, so 16 over 4, so I'm going to do the big one over the smaller one, which it doesn't matter. Then when we do the other pairing, so these shorter sides, or these are the longer sides, sorry. So the longer sides, we still have to do the big over the small, so it'd be 24 over my 6, and that also equals 4. So far the sides are proportional. Then we have to check the angles. So remember, the angles need to be congruent. So if we look at all the different angles, we can see that in our large figure we have 90 degrees for every single one. For the smaller one, we do see that they are also 90 degrees for every single one. This means that they are congruent, so our angles are congruent. So yes, this is a similar figure. So it is a similar figure because the corresponding sides are proportional and our angles are congruent. So make sure you write the reason why it is, not just yes or no.